Season 3 of the Gilded Age has recently concluded, and as I said throughout the entirety of this season, it was hands down the best installment that the show has ever put out there. With a shocking ending which alluded to the fact that George and Bertha might well end up getting divorced when it returns, and it could mirror the true events of Alval Belmont, the real-life person that Bertha Russell was based on. When it does land on our screens again, there could be complete turmoil throughout high society. As well as that, romances blossomed all round, and new scheming was taking place which showed that Oscar and Mrs Winterton could well rise above the likes of Bertha. So with that, I thought I'd take a look at all that was out there and also give my theories and predictions for what I think could happen next. Here is the Gilded Age Season 4 Everything We Know. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The story: George and Bertha's divorce. One of the main stories that I think we're going to see taking place will be focused around George and Bertha and the possibility of them getting a divorce. The idea was at the core of this season and was teased to us, but it was only in the finale where we heard that George had seen things clearer in his life now following him waking up from almost dying. It's said that George Russell is a blend of William K. Vanderbilt, who is the real-life husband of Alval Belmont, which is the character that Bertha Russell was based on, but also that he's inspired by Jay Gould. It seems to be Jay Gould in business and William in family and romantics. When turning to the true events, Alval Belmont and William K. Vanderbilt did actually end up getting a divorce, and it was done because William was said to be having affairs with other women. So I wonder if this is something that the show could look to incorporate into the story. We know that George has been growing frustrated with the fact that Bertha has been using the people that he loves in order to climb up the social ladder. But I think the giving away of his daughter to the Duke was the final nail in the coffin, and it just made him see how cold Bertha actually was, using their daughter and her happiness in all of this. I also think that we're going to see a heavy focus being put on the railway project that George is working on, and it most likely means that he'll be out of the city for a long while and be in Arizona, and that could be where the affair could begin for him. The hunt for the shooter of George is something that I also think we could end up seeing taking place too. We know that it's Clay, but I think we will see it officially being revealed to be him. That whole be as rough as you like with him makes me think that he might end up being killed off screen, or we could see George confronting him. I also think we're going to end up seeing Bertha's slight decline in high society. The past 3 seasons have all been about her ascension, so with all this talk of divorce, it's about time that she was challenged and it didn't go as smoothly for her. Oscar and Mrs Winterton's scheme. Now, this is a story that's come absolutely out of nowhere, and I'm all here for it. The idea of it was only shown to us in the season finale, but I think this story has the potential to take center stage and rival the drama of George and Bertha's divorce. With Oscar and Mrs Winterton looking to get married and essentially become the next power couple in high society, even though it's all for show. With her extreme wealth and his connections, I think that's something that could well be possible. There was a focus on the conversation between Bertha and Mrs Winterton about if they could ever be friends and how they've had to overcome it. So I think we could end up seeing Mrs Winterton rising above the likes of Bertha in the next season. I also think it'll just be nice to see Oscar being center stage in the story, as it feels like he's not really had a plot that's been worthy of dominating the screen time in quite some time now. He's always just kind of off to the side. Hector and Gladys. One of the major reveals at the end of this season was that Gladys was now with child. Whilst I thought Gladys being in England could potentially mean that both herself and Hector were going to be written out of the show, it now actually seems like the show could be split between continents as Gladys' story takes place over there. When looking at the real figure that Gladys is based on, Consuelo Vanderbilt, the same unhappy marriage is something that was present in her life with the Duke. She was married to the Duke, but instead of the happiness like we saw being present at the end of the season with Gladys, this was one that was filled with affairs, deceit, and a lack of love. So I wonder if this is something that will start to occur when they go back to Sidmouth. We might see that the marriage might not be as plain sailing as it looks like it could be. Within reality, Consuelo and the Duke went on to have 2 children together, so I'm presuming this is just the first of the 2 that we're going to see between Gladys and Hector. I do also wonder if, with her mother being upset and not quite knowing what to do with regards to her own marriage, Gladys might want to stay in New York, which could mean that we might get a bit more screen time with Gladys in the city. Peggy and Dr Krikland's marriage. In the season 3 finale, it finally happened. Dr Krikland stood up to his mother and we saw that he disregarded what she thought and he proposed to Peggy. Originally, I thought they were a perfect match, other than the fact that he didn't stand up for Peggy in front of his mother, but now that he's done that, I think they are very well suited, and you can see how much they care for each other. I reckon this will most likely be the second wedding in the season, because it could well be a triple wedding season. Oscar and Mrs Winterton, Peggy and Dr Krikland, and also Larry and Marion. So I think we're most likely going to see Peggy's story being very much focused around that. I don't know why, but I have a feeling that there'll be a death in Peggy's family, either her mother or her father. It's never really been an easy ride for her, and with her life all starting to come together, I feel like there might be a disaster. With her father having less screen time in this season, it makes me think that we're being eased into him potentially being killed off. I also think we're going to continue to see Peggy battling with Mrs Krikland and not necessarily looking for approval because she no longer needs it, and she's better than that. But I think Mrs Krikland will just be causing as much friction as she possibly can, simply because she can, and because it's now what she wants. Larry and Marion. The final main story that I think we'll see being developed will be around Larry and Marion. If I'm being honest, this is the love story that I'm least interested in now because it just feels like it's been going on for too long. The whole will they won't they has just dragged and it's become a victim of it just outlasting the level of excitement and interest that it warranted. I think we will see them get married, and it'll probably be the marriage of the season because Bertha might well use that wedding to up her position in high society and get the people talking about something that's not her absent husband. But this relationship definitely just needs to be cemented now. The release date. When it comes to the release date of season 4 of the show, the main question that's usually on my mind when a season concludes is, has it been greenlit for another, or is it up in the air with the potential for cancellation? Well, thankfully, after episode 6 aired, HBO announced to us all that the show would be returning for a 4th season, and I'm so glad that it has been. The way that the ending of season 3 went, we desperately needed to see how the story's going to continue, so that's a good bit of news for sure. According to the viewing figures, it looked like season 3 was actually pulling in more viewers than what season 2 got, so it's no surprise that they decided that the story was worth continuing. With regards to how long we'll have to wait for the new season, the best way to determine how long it'll take is to compare it to the previous seasons that came before it. For example, season 1 was released in January of 2022 and season 2 was released in October of 2023, which meant that by the time season 1 concluded, it was around a year and a half that we needed to wait. And then with season 2 and season 3, season 2 concluded in December of 2023 and season 3 started in May 2025. Which meant that we had around a year and a half's wait for that too, which showed that there was a trend that it was following. Seeing as though HBO has left a similar time gap twice in a row, I think it's safe to assume that we'll have to wait a similar amount of time as well, meaning that we could most likely see a season 4 of the show in around October to December 2026. The cast. When it comes to the characters and cast in the show, along with the writing, the performances and the way that these characters are written is what makes the show so strong. Between season 2 and 3, there were a few characters that didn't manage to make a return because they either died or were written out of the show. During the season 3 finale, there weren't really any major deaths or characters that were written out, so I would assume that it's safe to imagine that most of the main characters will be returning to the screen. The only 3 characters from this season that I don't think will be making a return are Maud Beaton because Oscar paid her to essentially go off and start a new life somewhere, and also John Adams as he was killed off in episode 6. The final one is Lady Sarah, as it was mentioned in passing by Hector and Gladys that she was going to be moving out of Sidmouth, so I don't think she's going to be returning. The drama was completed there. I even think we might get less of Gladys and Hector, and them being in England could draw them out of the main story completely. So that means the likes of George, Bertha, Larry, their house staff, Gladys, Hector, Marion, Agnes, Ada, Oscar, their house staff, Mrs Winterton, Peggy, Dorothy, Arthur, Dr Krikland, Mrs Krikland, Aurora, Mrs Astor, her daughter, Mrs Fish, and Clay will most likely all return to the show. They're at the heart of the Gilded Age, and they're all involved in the main story, so without them in it, it just wouldn't be the same. As well as that, I also think that we're going to be introduced to a wide array of new characters. The finale of the season had a large focus on the future of high society, so with rules changing, I think new characters could also be introduced. George also mentioned how he was viewing things a little differently to what he did before he was shot. So I wonder if there could be a new love interest on the cards for him, as it was mentioned that William K. Vanderbilt, Alva Belmont's husband, was seen to have affairs. So I do wonder if the show could look to mirror that and introduce a new character which would facilitate that story. Unfortunately for now, that's all that's known about the Gilded Age Season 4. I'm sure more information will get released as we draw closer to the release date, but until then, there's the real-life events that we can look back on to predict what we could eventually see. So, there you have it, the Gilded Age Season 4 Everything We Know.